go, it's going to be a problem. They're inside the plant. We don't have to pull the roof to get some of that out. Some of the underground piping, the piping to the dam itself has been there that long. And basically that's what we're doing, is taking a real hard, deep look at it with this study and bringing back that information to you on that. I'm not saying today that I'm here wanting to spend multi-millions of dollars. What I'm here today is to say we need to take a real hard, deep look at it. This is the three options that I want to take a look at it and bring back to you all this information for you to have before you to make a decision on what the path forward is on the plan. My recommendation as a director, and always will be, is that you keep the plant because you have two water sources. Because at any given time that one water source goes, you can have the other one operating. And that has happened here.
You're referring to the lake and the city forward?
Yes, sir. No, to keep both the water operations. For instance, if something happens at the plant, we immediately shut down, bring on Fort Worth. Vice versa, if something happens at Fort Worth, we keep pumping.
$44,800?
Yes, and what?
An evaluation?
Yes, sir, and with that, I can...
A plant that I thought we just spent millions revamping.
So I guess my question is, kind of to piggyback off of that, there was no, when we talked about the clarifier 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was no speculation that we were, because, correct me if I'm wrong, the clarifier is wasted if we go on city forward. So we wasted that money, if that's the case. The other thing, I get where you're coming from, but we're talking about spending $44,000 to look at three options, and you just told us what your option is. So we've all kind of been around studies. So are we going to spend $44,000 to come to the option of, well, we need to keep our own plant because that's where we're starting out from. So it doesn't seem like we're starting out from just a totally neutral, hey, let's figure this out. It kind of seems like there's already a direction we're going here, and part of that, I don't mean for all of that to be aimed at you, because like I said, what we did with the clarifier already kind of led us down that road to begin with. So
yes, and the clarifier planning was prior to me, but and I fully agree with what you're saying. I kind of slanted it in the beginning of the part for the study. But I will be the first one to stand up if the study says that you need to go to another different option because of cost and everything else. That's why there's nothing in this study that's not totally out of the box. We're not going to spend a lot of time on option 3, building the new plant, because they can give me a cost estimate pretty quick. It's just the only thing that we will have to add additional down there is because of the terrain. You know, they're not going to spend engineering hours on that. The main focus is on option 1, where basically what you're going to need for the next 3 to 5 years. And it's always been a what if we went fully on Fort Worth.
I don't think that would ever be that's not an option.
And if you want to do that, then we can pull those 2 items out of the study, and I can bring this back before you and Mr. Wheeler, because I know Mr. Wheeler will need time to pull that out and readjust his engineering hours. This is all based on engineering hours.
I would personally like to see that scope, not throw this one out entirely, but I would like to see a narrower scope as well, because what has been, I think, expressed is I don't know the difference between if they were to evaluate basically just what we need to maintain, or you're saying evaluate replacing, maintain or replace ours, versus simply doing away with it. But I would at least like to see what the differences between those scopes would be.
Okay, let's see if he can answer anything for us. Mr. Wheeler?
Some other was talking, I think, some historical perspective on this. Back in 1994, when Herman and I came on the council, there was a major upgrade going on at that time. And I remember we issued bonds that are, I don't know if they're paid off yet now, or not.
They're paid
Anyway,
off.
we asked, I'm sorry?
They're paid off.
They're paid off now. So they were due then, and we asked the current council, before you invested this money, did you investigate your alternatives for the plan? Meaning that it was worth really thinking out the loan for that versus, you know, going to Fort Worth or something, and they hadn't done that. So to me, I know we're, you know, fast forward, 26 years of that. But in the long run, and I agree with about the clarifier, and we've got issued, 20-year bonds, I think, to pay that off. But at some point, I think it's worth some amount of money to have it validated that regardless of what we did in the past, in the future, that it is worth putting what will eventually be tens of millions of dollars into that plan. As you know it says. So I don't want to be, live and have foolish related to the consulting fee. I know that is a lot of money, but when you such a large decision, that fee is probably worth some amount of money to have that comfort going forward and to prove to the citizenry and everyone else that the direction we're going is the right direction, considering the new mandates and all that are coming out. Looking at it as a big picture that someone well-versed in talking about this has analyzed all that and made sense. The other comment, or I guess question I would have is, let's just say they came back and said that, over the next 10 years, if you do what you're doing, it's going to cost X amount of dollars versus if you built a new one or you went with Fort Worth, it would cost Y amount of dollars. What would be your guess at the lead time necessary? If we were going to rebuild that plan totally or something major, I'm guessing that's not something you turn on a dime for. So that 5 years out, you start planning for something like that, is that 10 years out or even longer?
Basically what we're here today before you started, we have needs down there, and that's why we're saying today we need to start doing some kind of planning.
Good. If we needed one of those motors you're talking about going out, how quick could we get it? If we said, we've decided,
If the raw water pump motor itself that's in the interior of the building goes out, we're looking at 90 days to replace that. So we'll be down 90 days at least.
My fear on
But I mean, just the planning process and the whole 9 yards that goes into building a new plant, it's got to be a long lead time.
Yeah. Mr. Wheeler, are you there to speak on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Holland, to your question, usually you have about a year's time, maybe a little bit less, to do the design for a full plant. And then typically plants take about 18 months to 2 years to construct. I don't know how many extra steps there may be just due to the location of your plant. It has its own specific challenges. But that's kind of the typical timeline. And then and then while you're doing the design, you're also doing your, whatever permitting is required as well.
Okay, so it's not an extraordinarily long period.
No, sir.
Okay.
My question is, why would we not figure this in when we did all that work before, on the outside anyway? Was that not a consideration then to incorporate that into that project and rebuild the whole plan? That's what we were going to do?
at least know that's needed.
That's a question I can't answer because I wasn't here.
Well, I wasn't here when the decision was made either, but I just wondered what the thinking was in it. But if now we think we're going to need a plant in the near future or sometime in the future, what if we couldn't rebuild the one we have? Well, or if we could, why didn't we do it then instead of waiting to do it now?
Spend this much
One
money.
thing that I would add to that is I think the current issue with the magnesium is right.
It's actually manganese.
Yeah,
Manganese, sorry.
Yep. That's all right.
it just